All right, I'm officially live on Periscope. So if you guys, if for some reason my TikTok shuts down on this, or maybe after I chit chat with Rebecca for a little while, I could take some more callers in and we can make a little show out of it if you guys want. I have my coffee and I have my vape. I have my vape. Yes, I have my vape. I have my coffee and I have my vape. I'm fucking good for at least 3 hours, so we're good. Okay. Oh wait, this isn't the coffee I wanted. What's my Periscope? So it's the same as this. It's the same as this. Hey Rebecca, what's up? Rebecca's got me scared. What flavored coffee? Fucking black, dude. It's fucking black. All right. All right, Rebecca wants to come in. Okay, here we go. Hello, Rebecca. How are you?
I am fired up and ready to go.
You feel ready to go? Okay. So let me I know you I called you an influencer, an entrepreneur, a coach. Want you to give everybody a little background on you real quick before we get into starting to talk about where this conversation is going to get us.
Okay. So I'm basically a Becky, a Karen, and a Polly, which I'll explain later.
A what?
Becky, a Karen, and a Polly, or Pearl, I don't know. Yeah, so basically, I'm technically speaking, for those of you operating in the existing paradigm, Gen X, and I was an early adopter. Well, in fact, I was a pioneer Gen X kind of person. So I wasn't a cusper. I was kind of right in the middle. Um, but my family was super techie, so I was on the internet before there was a web.
That's
So
right.
I've
You
been,
were kind of a pioneer of the
yeah,
early web space too, and you had a big tech family, like you said, and you also have a lot of entrepreneurial skills that I don't know if you had before, but you definitely taught yourself during your early teenage years, right?
yeah. So I was in a coma when I was a kid because of a car crash, and I had to teach myself to read and write and speak again. And as many Gen Xers might know, mental health provisions not that great back then. It was like, well, you're alive, yay, that's a bonus. Get on with it, do your best, bye. And so I taught myself that, and then that gave me a kind of entrepreneurial leaning. And then I set up. I was one of the .com pioneers and helped one of the very first people bringing social to the web, and a lot of things that are now memes. I was kind of one of the first people to do them. I mean, even down
Yeah,
to kind of lolcats. But
yeah. I remember you telling me about like the first picture that you got, the first one of the first like JPEG. I guess it was a
yeah,
JPEG that was
it
sent
was a
to.
gift.
Get oh was it it was a picture of a cow, was
No,
it,
oh
or
no,
just
which one
oh
was
no
that?
wait wait.
I had a cat with flashing eyes that told horoscopes.
Oh my
Oh
god.
no, 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 no! You're talking about the woman
The
with the
four
six
boobs.
breasts.
The six, yeah,
Yeah,
the six boob lady.
yeah, that was my first experience of the web. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god. Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of talk about generations. I like focusing on Generation X because um they seem like they have a lot of potential. They're kind of unsung heroes. They're definitely survivors, and they're getting older, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things that are interesting me about Generation X because they don't they have a stereotype, but it's kind of it's the stereotype is ambivalence or not being called lazy for sure. No one's calling them lazy. They're just saying that they're kind of just saying that they're kind of quiet or they're reserved or they're exhausted or they've taken the back seat for whatever reason and or fight in their own special way. So let's talk about the whole idea of generational theory first, right?
It's worth just dropping in there for people to kind of do their research. That at the same time as people are saying that, when you look at the actual data, Gen X are the ones making the most money and with the highest IQ as well. So it's worth just throwing that in too.
Good note. Good note. Good note. But who's counting though? You know
No,
what I mean?
no,
Like
no. I'm
who's
just saying,
but like
you know,
who's counting?
yeah, just because
The
we're women.
highest IQ and make the most money. I think you're right about that. I know you're right about the most money. I did not know about the IQ part of it.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. We're
I mean,
massively
and definitely the most
overeducated.
and definitely the most entrepreneurial. Definitely the most entrepreneurial. Wikipedia, Yahoo,
Yeah.
Amazon, a lot of startup companies. So
It's not
so
that we're like naturally more intelligent than anyone else. It's just what happens when there is a massive, great big setup for a very large generation educationally, and then they graduate, and you come in, you're a little minnow generation, and there's way too many teachers and way too few students. You get lots of education.
yeah, and there's a lot of self sufficiency there too. A lot of critical thinking I think that happened during that generation because they weren't spoon fed much.
No.
You know, they kind of had to work for everything. So let's talk about what we know. What do we know nowadays about generational theory?
Okay, so there's tons, but I'm unsubscribing from all of it
Okay, why are you unsubscribing from generational theory?
because it's bollocks.
It's bollocks. Tell me why. Why is it? Why
Okay,
is it?
so
Why is it
so
bull?
I am now declaring myself a generational nomad, and here's why. Like
Okay.
I'm not playing this game anymore. I am done with this game. It's insane. I'm done with it because my music taste is basically boomer, Gen X, millennial, and Gen Z, depending on my mood. My
Hmm.
last three friendly calls that I had with people were the last one was to a millennial, one last night to a Gen Z person I spent on the 2 hours on the phone with, and then previous to that, a boomer. Um, I'm I'm super techie for Gen Z,
Hmm.
but I'm not, this kind of copy and paste Karen thing. I call them copy and paste Karens because they're not Gen Z, they're not even boomers. You find them in the boomer generation too, but you find them in the generation before that too. And it seems to be a bunch of women who are massively focused on creating large families and doing things exactly the way that their mothers did things. and
Interesting.
and so
There's
they're
a lot of
not
pressure
if
from that.
yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on them, and they're looking at a blueprint that's passed down to them. They're not evolving, and it's really easy to poke fun at them
So it's
because
repeating
that
itself. Yeah.
yeah, it's just repetitive. You can find them in boomer generation, you can find them in Gen Z. they're
Right.
they're, they're just copy and paste Karens. They're not It's not a generational thing at all.
So and this whole thing about Karens came about recently because of that lady. They're calling her Kids Bop Karen, which was a 42-year-old lady who basically just got. I mean, when I see that video, I don't really think Karen. I think uh, mental health awareness. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
um, that was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, ooh, that's some stuff. She
Yeah,
needs.
there's some rage under that, but
To,
there's rage. But I feel kind of like I feel like I want to say something nice about her. Like at least she didn't completely freaking lose it and start throwing stuff around. I mean, the
yes,
rage was
right.
just under the surface, but it was kind of just under the surface.
You know,
It was passive aggressive. It wasn't full aggressive.
it, I don't have much. I don't have much substantial data, but I did look in because originally I made a video and it said that she was 29, and the misinformation came from the lady who took the video was 29, not the
Yeah,
person who was taking the video. So I found her. I found her. She was exposed on Facebook. She's got a couple of different accounts on there. Her husband's on there. I looked her up on just some random search engine. Can't obviously identify if it's her. However, there was somebody by her name that I'm not going to repeat, but it was somebody by her name that had many complaints for buildings within that same city that had the
wow.
same age and the same name. So it would kind of fall into that category. Like, well, this is kind of that is very very Karen. That is
Yeah,
very Karen
yeah,
to kind of go out of your way and be like, you know what, it's not my business, but something
yeah.
needs to be done about
Yeah,
this.
but the thing with that Karen thing, that kind of like I'm going to report you to the manager. Who is
Yeah.
doing that the most right now? Gen Z. Gen Z is reporting entire generations to the
Who are
manager
they
right now.
reporting? But who's the authority?
Nobody themselves. They're that narcissistic.
That's that boy that hits home, man. That really does hit home. They're reporting to themselves. You know, I saw I've been taking these screenshots lately. I had that one video that I made fun of all the generations, right, recently in a series, and I did one for Gen Z. Gen Z was the most offended out of everybody.
Of course.
Um, that I'm not surprised, you know, like, but I really did it to kind of show what the stereotypes are, right? I got a lot of comments saying that, listen, you know, this is what 14-year-old white boys are, and I'm like, you know, you're talking about baby boomers like they're all old 60-year-old racist bigots too, you know, like they're not all like that. they're not all like that.
Yeah, you
So
can't.
I was trying
You
to just show the
just can't.
stereotypes of it.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, I kind of want to unsubscribe from the whole generational thing. I kind of want to go, do you know what? I'm not in a generation. I am now a generational nomad. I'm dating someone half my age. If I
Uh-huh.
actually pulled that generational crap with him, it wouldn't get me anywhere.
And
Like,
what would be the point, really? You know,
you can't. I mean, it's one thing that dating outside your generation, because I've dated people of various different ages. It's not, I'm not a cougar. Well, I mean, maybe I am, but I don't specifically seek out people of different ages. I just, sometimes it happens. And my experience of that is, when you fall in love with someone and when you get to know that person, their age after a while is almost invisible to you. There's a
mhm.
few different nuances, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it's kind of an irrelevance. And
Especially within like 10 years or something like that.
yeah,
Within about 10 years or so, it's very easy to see eye to eye.
yeah, but it's irrelevant. And if you're somebody who is, obviously, if you're both adults, I mean, there's a whole other argument
Of
going on
course, of course.
TikTok,
We're
which is
assuming
totally
this is
different.
totally assuming everyone's of
Yeah,
consent, of course.
everyone's of consenting age. But at that point, if you actually do um, date outside of your own close age group, which I don't recommend for anyone sort of 18, 19 or whatever, stay close to your age. But when you're a bit older, you can. You actually start to realize these generational boundaries that you have so set in your mind about how people think start to break down, because you start to notice, actually, do you know what? This person is way more old fashioned than me in this way. And
Yeah.
and then I'm kind of way more ahead of the curve on this thing. And there's things that kind of, you start to realize a lot of this stuff is BS.
Yeah.
Some of it's
So where did it
genuine,
come
but
from?
not all of it.
What was the benefit
I know.
of ever putting us
I
into these
know.
generational,
I know.
because there is a my big standpoint is that there is generational theory, there's generational identity, and then there's cohort analytics, right? There's a
Yeah.
sociology involved with it all, which is kind of where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And then there's the actual identification based on the stereotypes of the generational theory.
I know
So
what it is.
there's these whole different sects of things. It's not there's more to it than astrology, but I mean, damn,
Yeah.
it's right there. It is right there
Okay,
on
I've
the
got
thing.
some theories. I've
Okay.
come up with some theories today. I think what it comes down to, and why Gen Z right now is so full on about it, because they have not grown up in peacetime, and their parents, in a lot of ways, a lot of the younger ones haven't either. So they're really massively primed epigenetically to fight. They just are. And I think it's coming from primal fear. And
Or
but
lack of voice, I mean, they're voicing their opinions in the only avenue that they can because they're so oppressed.
I don't think they're oppressed.
Okay.
And I think some of them are, you know, just kind of being brats, like we all have been in the
Well, they're under
past. Like,
22,
yeah,
under
yeah,
22 people who are upset at their parents. I mean, I think
yeah,
it's very, very
yeah.
average to act
It's
like
it,
that.
it's perfectly normal to do that. But I think this particularly kind of aggressive approach of anybody who is not completely like me, I'm going to cut down, is coming from primal fear,
The
which is based.
self-segregation part too. Yeah.
Yeah, but the segregation thing, it's so important to kind of understand that on an anthropological level, like where that's come from, and also the naming that is happening around generations. It's, the slurs that are being put out are so gendered. There's a whole other thing about that, and that's to do with, anyway, it comes down to primal fear. If you
Okay.
look at if you look at
What are they scared
tribes,
of? What are they scared of if it's primal fear?
it's kind of like it's actually fear of catching something. It's fear of it's fear of viral infestation. It's fear
Hmm.
of catching something. It's fear of something not being clean. It's fear of something being other. It's fear of otherness. And it comes from, it's an ancient part of the brain. And it comes from back when there were different kind of branches of the sort of pre-humans. We were just doing the human thing. It was very early on. And it actually, when a tribe looked different from your tribe, the chances
Yes.
are they were coming from a different place and they
Yes.
had different viruses.
Richard Dawkins talks about it. What's it called? there's something called that. It was basically, I mean, you're talking about the creation of races right now.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
But
I
it's
know what you're talking about.
but so it kind of partially explains why racism it just keeps kicking off, and it's, you know, and it does, even if you kind of put logic to it and you try and explain things to people, they still go back to this ridiculously cave
This
person
default
view. Yeah,
this default mindset that says you're different than me. I'm
yeah,
going to catch something from you. It's best
yeah,
that we stay away.
yeah,
And that was the whole theory was about this, is that the flight out of Africa, when they started evolving around the world, or well, basically, or setting up races all around the world, that they would meet these different people
yeah,
and they would form an improper opinion about them based on how they look, or
yeah,
because we're just different in any way, shape, or form.
yeah.
And that's where that whole thing
Yeah,
came from.
so Gen Z is living in a bubble. So they are just identifying with screens. When they get old enough to be sexually active, most of the time they're sexually active with themselves, with screens. And the older generations are scaring the crap out of them because we're actually like physically connected, you know.
Dude, what a bunch of
Oh my God,
weirdos.
the infections. Oh my God, the kind of like, you know, actual physical contact. They're really not big on physical contact.
So, and
And there's
it's,
very self-protecting because of things like the, you know, the guns and stuff that are coming into schools and all that.
yeah.
So I think it's fear. I think it's honestly, it's not something that they're fully processing mentally. It's coming from a very ancient part of the brain that says we're not safe if we're too much in contact with people. So we have to get on this app where we're all kind of, you know, we're not going to catch anything, and we need to just group together, and then anything that's other, we have to make it go away.
Yeah, the one thing that's always kind of upset me about that specific, about Generation Z specifically, is the self segregation part. The one thing that upset me about baby boomers was the same thing. You know, everybody who's younger than me is dumb and they don't know what you know real experience is like. And then Gen Z saying everybody who's older than me doesn't know what it's like to live in the real world nowadays. So you have two groups pushing away everybody, and then you have millennials kind of just living in counseling depression and poverty. And then you have Gen X saying, "Listen, we've seen this coming. We tried."
Yeah.
So tell me about Gen X's part in all this, so, and a little bit on millennials, I guess, too, because we can really connect the dots that baby boomers and Generation Z, appropriately called Zoomers at this point. I mean, seriously,
Mm.
like that it's still kind of a slur, but they are very. I mean, they're baby boomer 2.0, really.
Oh, they are. Oh, they're so in the same type, you know, segregation type energy that boomers are in. But it's also worth saying that that's only some boomers. Every generation is absolutely massive, and the boomers, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was in a band, and there was so many generations in that band. Like our saxophonist was 13, and the lead singer was like in his 40s, and I was in my 20s, and there were other people in there in different ages, and he was a classic hippie, like first time round boom. He never left. He was still living in that world. He was
Mhm.
just in a haze of kind of, you know, patchouli oil scented
Well,
pot and
that's the kind of Freudian thing, though. Like after 16, you're pretty much who you're going to be. You know, by the time you're 16, that's basically who you're going to be for the rest of your life. Which is why I think a lot of the cohort part of generational identity and is what you did up until that age. What kind of technology you had, what music you had, what kind of parents you had during that time.
mm.
You know, what you're experiencing up to that those mid teenage years is basically going to shape the rest of your future and who you're going to turn into.
I think it's from the work that I've done with dark triad people. I would say you've got some wiggle room. It's if you're a copy and paste kind of person. So copy and paste Karens, yeah, they're going to carry on doing exactly what they were told to do and exactly what their parents were told to do
Come
and
hell or high
exactly what,
water.
no matter what. And
Yeah.
they're so tied to that model that if you challenge it, they're in a fixed, what's called a fixed mindset. There's fixed mindset and growth mindset. They are so in a fixed mindset that if you challenge it,
You
it's
can't
it's
think
all gonna go like it's gonna kick off.
like that's when you can't be helped, right? I mean,
Yeah,
in counseling, you know, the difference between like a chronic issue
yeah,
and a partial issue is whether or not you could be helped or not.
yeah. There's no
You know,
there's no hope. There's no hope
there's
because
no
they
hope.
don't want to change. They don't want to change at all. But if you have a growth mindset, your personality doesn't fix as such. theoretically, if you have a big enough event happening to you at any point in your life, your personality can change. But realistically, your personality is still growing up until you're about 24, 25. So
Okay.
so you can, if you have a growth mindset, become more flexible, become more progressive, become more open to new ideas right up until you're sort of 24, 25. And then at that point, generally speaking, people change a bit, but they're pretty much who they're going to be. By the time you're 25, 26, that's who you are. And then you just mature.
So I was always aware of the whole, your brain development, your neurochemistry is kind of, that's when it completes, right?
No,
Around
no,
around.
no, it's bullshit. And if I
Okay.
believed that and I'd listened to that, I wouldn't be able to speak.
So tell me what that's got to, what if maybe the misnomers about that have anything to do with the idea that your personality can kind of be what it is by that time anyway. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the extent to which
Where's the
neuroplasticity
misinformation, I guess,
neuroplasticity basically, so a lot of the earlier psychological stuff that we base everything on, that has gone into the sort of traditions of, gets passed down and nobody really analyzes it, is based on a fixed mindset approach, and it's based on ideas that are largely to do with inherited genetic traits, and then a degree of alteration through primary socialization and early secondary socialization, and then you're done. And that's that. And that's not actually how the brain works at all, because if it was, I wouldn't be able to speak, because those parts of my brain are missing. So
And that is, and you are a very credible source when it comes to that. That is firsthand experience. So
yeah,
I believe you. I
have,
believe you. Um,
having rebuilt this like lick it and stick it, throw it together myself, rebuild my left brain with my right brain, crazy brain. I
so
know this stuff.
under the idea though that, let's say we have until about 25 or early
Yeah.
20s at best to kind of be fixed in our personality, whether we can, either learn to grow or kind of just be a lost cause. Well, not a complete lost cause, but mostly a lost cause. um uh Gen Z is between what, like 8 and 22 or something like that right now.
Hmm.
10 and let's say 10 and 22 right now. They still have a good amount of time
Yeah.
for a majority of them to reach that age, to
Yeah.
reach that level, right?
Yeah.
They're
And
still a very young generation.
yeah, they can definitely change. They can become, I mean, they're not set. They can become whatever they want to become. They can look at themselves and introvert a little bit and think, am I being my best self right now? Is this really what I want to stand for? And if it's not, they can change that. Um, Actually, anyone can. Brendan Burchard has done a lot of, he's got a brain research kind of institute thing that he set up now, that's done a lot of cutting edge research on this. And he works with Oprah and stuff. But he has discovered that this growth mindset thing, if you kick it off and you develop a sense of being in perpetual growth and being perpetually open to new ideas, you can carry on changing your brain and altering your neural connections for the rest of your life. There's no actual end point on it. It's just, if you set yourself with a fixed mindset at an early age, and then you believe that's who you are, you don't, you're not developing the tools, the muscles to do that go flabby. You
So
don't
do
even
you
know where
think,
they are.
so bringing it back to Generation X, I guess, and I guess, what do you think some of the what are the different types of parenting techniques that are changing those types of people for Gen Z? And, like, let's say, because a lot of millennials had baby boomer parents, some Gen X had baby boomer parents and silent generation parents. How is the parenting, especially when it relates to technology, changed since now the Gen Z has become, because Gen Z has become probably the most outspoken um, generation that's under fucking 20 right now. I mean, the millennials were not doing this when we were 20.
No,
This was not happening.
I mean, generally speaking, the pendulum goes back and forth. So if a lot of Gen Z children had Gen X parents, Gen X were kept down, kept behind the scenes, were kept quiet, we just never received praise for what we did. We did a lot, but nobody kind of saw it. Everyone used it. Everyone still uses it. We get to look at it and go, "Oh, cool, we did that. That's nice." But
Yeah.
nobody kind of noticed us, and and I feel like because of, I mean, partially maybe because of epigenetics. Even epigenetics is, this is an emerging field as well. It's like, it's connected with genetics, but it's actually the fact that you can pass on DNA to another generation, even if you're not related, if you create a strong enough sensory experience. And,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so, so if,
Go ahead, finish that
sorry,
because I want to go back to that. No, I want to
yeah.
go back to that. Go ahead.
So
Go
if
ahead.
Gen X has, if Gen X women are feeling resentment through their pregnancies, or have had enough time during their lives where they felt completely not worthy or not noticed or just irrelevant, then the fetus is going to pick that up. That's actually genetically transmitted to the next generation, and
Yeah.
they rebel against it. They feel it, and they're like, no, balls, like I want to
That's
be
that's
complete, I must be famous. So this TikTok famous thing is,
that's really
you
interesting.
will not ignore me, I will be famous. And then you speak to these people who want to be TikTok famous and say, why do you want to be TikTok famous? I don't know, fame.
And
Why?
even if it's not, there's like a direct correlation. There is at least a connection between um, Gen Z. I mean, Generation X's latency in being noticed at all, or and self survival and surviving by yourself,
Yeah,
to their offspring, Generation Z. Or I mean, and you could probably keep going back further than that, can't you? You could probably go back hundreds of years with that. I mean, I
yeah,
remember. Tell me if this is the same study that I'm hearing about right here, when it comes to epigenetics. I remember somebody talking about a study with mice that they
yes,
removed the infants from the mouse from the mother before weaning age, right? And they let them survive on their own.
yeah,
And that even the offspring that they had their mother removed after they had children, and even though they weren't removed from the ones that were removed, if you're following me,
yeah,
that their offspring were still more stressed
yes,
than a normal one that had been out.
yes,
So there was a direct correlation. There was I
yeah.
mean, I don't know if
It's
they
to
were
four
able to pull.
generations. It's to four generations. So for example, if you're in a war situation and you're right in
So
that war situation,
yeah,
that that then goes into the
recession,
genetics.
slavery,
Yeah,
social
of four.
injustices,
Yeah.
all that.
But the cool thing about that, for those of us who don't have kids, is if you impact upon someone enough with like music or like major aha moments or whatever, that they feel, you know, those moments where you go, oh my god, you know,
Epiphany,
those
yeah.
moments, they get encoded into your DNA and they get passed on as well. So,
And
and that looks, when you actually start looking into that, it's fascinating. And it starts to explode this generational thing, because the generational thing is based on a very linear, closed in, fixed mindset. And what actually happens when you look at when you look at like the evolution of the species, dude's name has completely, oh, what was his name? So
who?
famous, the guy who
Dar-
came up with evolution in the first place.
Darwin?
Yeah, Darwin. That the book that everyone went crazy over. He wrote other stuff after that that was not talking about survival of the fittest. It was basically talking about survival of the most loving. Like, he learned more, but it didn't serve the patriarchy to promote that message. So
Correct.
so after that, there was loads of other stuff that he learned that was about the cooperation between between organizations of families, and how animals help each other and are involved in the process of passing on genetics in a way that is not directly to do with them. So the effect to which your siblings get in the way of you hooking up with the wrong person, or your, like, all of that stuff
Yeah.
is in there as well. And I feel like this need to kind of compartmentalize everything, it's really obsessive right now, and it's culturally, it happens every now and then, that it is like a pendulum, and there are some moments where people are really open and really kind of liberal with a small L, and kind of expressive and creative, and that those times tend to move society forward. And then
Yes.
there are contractions and regressions that move society backwards, but they solidify certain things, and they come from fear. One movement comes from love, another movement comes from fear.
Yeah.
The boomers, when you look at the boomers, there's two aspects to the boomers, there's two sides. The love and peace hippie, hey, let's all be, let the sun shine in, those boomers. And
Beautiful.
then the kind of MAGA hat wearing,
Yeah.
it's completely night and day. They're two
Which one's
totally
louder?
different groups of people.
Which one's louder?
At the moment, it's the MAGA hat wearing,
Yeah.
if anyone's different from me, I'm going to kill them group.
Exactly. And that's could that be the fear side and the other side be
It's
love?
fear and love. And the same is happening with Gen Z. The ones who are scared of viral infection are putting as much virus of their own out there in viral videos. Literally, they're
Literally, yeah.
trying to infect in a good way, like positively infect society with their own stuff, and then stop everything else from getting to them. And then the other side of that is that the creators who are kind of starting these memes and the ones who are doing original content, and they're not always getting the most, a lot of them, they're not getting the most credit, but they're the most kind of open-hearted. They're creating stuff to go out there to help others, and
Mhm.
then everyone else is like copying it and then grabbing it and then kind of using it to attack people. And it's
So
all groups of people have that.
yes, so there's always going to be a group that is. I mean, the stereotype of every group is not the best qualities, like by definition. They're
No.
never going to whatever stereotype that we have for any generation or thought. It's always going to be veering towards the negative side of it, because that's the most impactful to people. People have the most impact towards the negative side of things. I've been seeing this trend, especially on that. I was really, really excited to see a lot of people fight back against the stereotype for the video I made about Generation Z. I had a lot of people say this is exactly what it's like, and I'm glad I'm not like that.
Mm.
Or people saying seeing something like this is a good video, and then someone else saying, "Okay, boomer," and they're like, "Dude, I'm in Gen Z. What are you
Yeah.
doing?"
Yeah.
I was just like eating that up, man.
Yeah.
It was just so fulfilling to me to see that, because I was like, oh my god, they exist. They're out here. They're not the loud ones. They are definitely not the loud ones in the group, but they are there.
Oh, there's
Um,
some amazing Gen Z.
yeah.
Amazing. I
Hmm.
mean, I was interviewing Sam, and I've spoken to him a lot subsequently, and he's got some really fascinating ideas. He just hit 1 million followers on TikTok, and he's a really fascinating guy. There's a bunch of Gen Z people that I've spoken to who are really really interesting, and they're not closed-minded, and they do look at other people's perspective, and they are looking at what's my kind of long-term intention, what am
Yeah.
I hoping to create, that's wonderful. But then there's a whole group of other people who are just, how do I close this down, how do I close that person down, if someone's successful, how do I make them go away? It's cancel culture. The whole thing with Charlie, I mean,
Oh my
that's
god.
horrifying. She's
It really just means
15.
the quicker you blow up, over something that's not. I mean, but let's be honest though. I think it called out not just her. She was a victim of canceling content that wasn't meaningful.
Mm,
I think they called out the idea that she's just somebody who sticks out her tongue and dances. That could have been anybody.
mm.
That could have been anybody that does that. But I like the idea that they canceled the idea. She just happened to be a victim of those circumstances.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, she did nothing wrong. She used
No,
the app for what it was intended
absolutely
to
not.
do. I mean,
Absolutely not.
yeah, maybe her dancing was not appropriate for her age group, but
Well,
then that's true
it,
of
it was
many people on the app.
it was just correct, absolutely. But I think they attacked. I'd like to think anyway. I'd like to think that they attacked or tried to cancel why she got
No,
what she, or why she got it. Tell me.
no, they're just jealous. I'm basically
You're
looking
probably
at the
right.
looking at the people who are doing it. That some of the stuff that's going out there about her is we need to get her off the app because she's stealing all our men. It's like, seriously, what? How insecure are you? And actually, what's happening is
That's a thing.
Seriously, honestly, it's just what happened in Gen X with Rachel from Friends when everybody, all these guys went crazy over Rachel from Friends, and we were like, what? There's all these supermodels. This is when the supers first came out. There's all these supermodels who are unbelievable looking, and then there's this woman with this kind of big nose and a kind of mannish jawline and
And let's not be
just
honest,
brownish hair. And
the Rachel haircut is very close to a Karen haircut. Let's be
well,
honest.
there you go. Well, there you go. Well, but you know that all these guys just went crazy over her,
Yeah.
and we couldn't work out why. And I think it was because she just was just very ordinary looking,
And
and
Ross got her. Ross was able to get a Rachel. That's
Ross
why.
got a Rachel. Ross
Ross
got a
got a
Rachel.
Rachel. Because we're all the nerdy dudes, we're all Rosses, dude.
Yeah,
You know?
seriously. Yeah,
Joey's busy getting late,
yeah.
right? Chandler's got Monica, right? Ross got Rachel.
Ross got
So
Rachel.
they're
Yeah,
sitting there, they're like, I would like a nice
yeah,
archaeologist,
yeah,
Like I want someone who's funny and literally willing to do anything.
yeah. So, but she was just ordinary, and that's actually what the magic of her was. Because a lot of times when guys are looking at these girls, yeah, they're looking at women with kind of just ridiculous hourglass figures and crazy amounts of makeup and filters and stuff, and they're going, oh yeah, okay. But ultimately, when they think about who do I actually want to be with, they're thinking about someone they know in real life,
Right.
and they're projecting
Yeah.
onto
Yeah.
some kind of, oh, this is a standard template. I can project the person I really like onto this person.
So going off of the cancel culture thing, and I want to get back to of how we're going to save the world by getting rid of generational theory
Yeah.
and evolving in mindset.
Oh,
But
we are.
tell me, but to piggyback off cancel culture, can you think of any moments back in the 70s or 80s that a lot of people nowadays might not remember or be were aware of where
Yeah.
cancel culture exists? I mean, because cancel culture has been around. It's not a new thing. It's just it proliferates much quicker and captures more people with a lot of emotional information.
I mean, it's difficult because with Gen X, the amount of technology that we had depended on where we were in the world, how early adopters we were. So there was kind of more diversity because it actually mattered if you lived in the countryside or you lived in the town or you lived in America or you lived in England.
So
It massively affected your experience of life. So um,
right.
yeah, my parents were early adopters of things, but we lived in England in the countryside.
But
So
does cancel culture directly relate to the internet? Did
I
cancel
think
culture exist before the internet?
it did exist in terms of anywhere that there's primal fear, there's cancel culture.
Or small
So,
groups of people. Like I mean, I've had people at school. I mean, I remember being in high school. This guy pissed on himself at a party one time, and he was ostracized for 4 years.
hmm.
That he was canceled.
Oh, I was cancelled after I had that head injury. I had 50 people bullying me every single day
Oh my
because
god.
I don't know whether they thought they were going to catch brain damage off me.
Oh
Like,
my
you
god.
can't catch being in a car accident. That's a pretty specific, but you know what kids are like. So I was cancelled for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. And then eventually there was no fixing it because I was literally cancelled. Like, I did not exist as a human being. I was subhuman. No one could be friends with me or
Right.
otherwise they'd be attacked. So I moved school thinking, okay, this is just going to be a different location for this. And all the kids were like, hey, what's up? And I was like,
It
well, at what point do you get scared to stand next to me? And they're like, well, why? Oh,
it
you're in
really
a car
only,
accident. Oh, right. Okay, that's
that's so
cool.
ridiculous.
This it just
Uh,
isn't relevant.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's ridiculous.
Mm.
It's almost like it's almost like people are trying to figure out something. One of the things I always said as like a joke growing up was that like we're all bored. All millennials are bored and lazy because you guys did all the fighting for us. We don't have anything to fight for anymore. What are we gonna
It's
do?
true. It's true.
Everything's literally been handed to us. What am I going to fight for? As I got older, I get a little bit more political about things that were a little bit outside of my own life that I think social justice things that should or social changes that should happen as a society, but not affecting me personally. I'm a white dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a 33-year-old white guy. There's not much that I'm affected by directly because of a lot of the things that have happened in the past 30 some odd years. There's you don't see the kind of protests and picketing and social warfares that happened back in the 70s and 80s anymore.
I mean, there was a lot. There was a lot. Say in my country, for instance, there were there was a lot of class stuff that you don't get so much over there, that kicked off in the kind of 70s and 80s. And also because we had a massive amount of immigration that happened, there were riots and stuff to do with race and
Mhm.
things, and
So
access to
I think
the same
racism
type
is
of
a
thing.
form of cancel culture.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Racism, ageism, any kind of outward bigotry that just becomes that becomes trendy
Yeah,
is fucking cancel culture. You know,
it is.
it started with just wanting to shit on popular celebrities. That's when it really took off, especially with like Taylor Swift in 2016. But since then, it really just seems like people are looking for something to complain about. That's
It's fear, and it's fear of otherness, and it's also fear of insignificance of the self. It's like, shit, I have to raise my game now, or I can just pull this person down. I'll do that then.
okay. So how are we going to save the world by getting rid of the idea of generational theory, where every 15 years is a new type of person?
So basically, we just do it. I think we just
Okay.
go, screw it. I'm not doing this generational thing anymore. It's
What's the
crap.
what's the
I'll
alternative?
say what it is. My little song that I made up for myself once, which made me laugh so much that I say it every now and then, which is that we're living in a Newtonian world and I am an Einsteinian girl. Because if you don't believe in linear time, you don't really believe in generations either. It's really obsession with this kind of linear timeline and everything being a certain way and everything being fixed, when you
Mhm.
realize that actually your experience of your age, and not only your experience of your age, but the actual physical age of your body, is affected by your personal relationship with your perception of your age. So for
Interesting.
instance, I don't look, I don't look my age. I'm nearly 47. I don't look it. But I actually had my organs tested because, you do that every
Mhm.
now and then. Had a glitch, turned out to be a bad migraine. They thought it might be a stroke, but it's just a migraine. But I
Mhm.
had tons of tests done, and my organs came out age 20. This was a couple of years ago, because I never thought in generationally. I've only been thinking generationally recently because millennials won't shut up about it. And so I kind of thought, oh, well, I guess I'm Gen X and that's that. I never previously had
I'm listening.
considered myself to be of a specific generation.
So I remember hearing this. Let me tell you, see if this is kind of what you're saying when it comes to like the your thought process is literally changing your biochemistry.
It is.
I remember some motivational speaker told me one time about this guy who went to the doctor, and he's like, the doctor went up to him, he goes, listen, we tested your heart, you got a gallop in your heart. He goes, oh, okay, fine. And then he goes and he lives his life, and then he comes back 7 months later, and the guy's much better. And he's like, this is incredible. You know, you had an anomaly in your heart before. You know, and I was wondering if you were even going to survive. He goes, what are you talking about? You said I had a gallop in my heart. He goes, yeah, that's a bad thing. He's like, oh, I thought you meant I was strong as a horse.
Yeah, it's true.
And
But
then he comes back and he's
yeah,
totally fine. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
But
that
that but
or
that actually plays into, I'm going to go spiritual for a second because I think it
go
needs to
ahead.
happen. So that actually plays into the thing that, what's interesting to me and what's somewhat worrying to me about Gen Z is how patriarchal this energy is. I would have thought, generally speaking, each generation is kind of more progressive than the last. And what's
Whoa,
happening?
whoa, that is a big statement. They're gonna be pissed to hear that.
I'm
They were gonna be
sorry.
pissed to hear
I'm
that.
sorry. Well, I'm just saying. I mean,
I
you
know,
could.
I love it. I
They
think
can
you're right.
they can disagree with it if they want to, but there's not a world of difference between this cancel culture thing that they're doing and the thing that the more patriarchal boomers are doing.
Yeah.
And
So Gen Z is a patriarchal generation. Ooh.
well, if you look at TikTok and you look at how boys are using it versus how girls are using it. I mean, men, women, that kind of cusp. The girls, for the most part, now, not obviously not all, and there are some amazing girls and young women on there doing like really
Yeah.
freaking awesome stuff, and I'm not for a second saying that there aren't.
Oh
but
no.
the but what looking at the kind of copy and paste, the general trends, what's happening is girls are kind of like, this is my butt and I can steal your man and all that crap. And the guys are, there's a lot of sexist stuff on there, that a lot, and again, not all, there are some amazing guys on there who are calling this stuff out, in
Mm-hmm.
fact, and they're pointing to it. But there is some major sexism on the app that is coming from younger users of the app that really resonates a lot more with the more kind of prejudiced boomers than it does with anything that millennials have done or Gen X have done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of looking at this and going, whoa, this is weird. This doesn't feel like a new generation. This feels like a bunch of cronies. What happened?
I agree. I agree. I'm hoping. I don't know if I was talking to you or I was saying it yesterday that I hope when Generation Alpha comes up, the next 10 or 15 years, when Generation Alpha is coming of age, they look over their shoulders and they see all this buffoonery that's happening
I
with the
hope so.
I hope that they just go, okay, we're not going to do that.
Yeah,
That was a misstep, and they're going to literally turn into the baby boomers of the future. They're still going to be doing the same thing for the next 30 or 40 years.
yeah. And I feel like I met a bunch of the kind of early Gen Z, so the cuspers with millennials, a few years ago, actually, quite a few years ago, when they were 13, 14. There were a bunch of little kind of tech kids who came up with ideas for apps, and they found me and they started kind of asking me questions. They were super geniuses.
Yeah.
And I did beta testing for them, and they were amazing. And I thought, gosh, this generation's going to be the best. And then this is happening, and I'm like, oh
So
no,
this and this is, of course, this is the funnel, right? This is where it all trickles down to an app like this, right?
yeah,
So there's people at school acting a certain way, there's people at home with their family acting a certain way, out with their friends, in public, and then they get their alone time and they put it out to the rest of the world and it all trickles down. But I think the reason it's so interesting to me, the reason this app is so interesting, the reason these feedback loops are so interesting to me is because this is their primal opinion about things. This
yeah,
is their very visceral feeling about
yeah.
things. And I think it counts for something, even
And it's
if
yeah,
it's just an expression of that fear and they act completely different outside of it.
yeah.
It is still a very real feeling that they have.
But the fear is very, very anti-feminine because the names that are being applied to the generations are female. So if you think about it, if you think about, let's go to the divine feminine for a second, maiden, mother, crone, right? There's three aspects of the divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
um the mother aspect is, I would argue, the Karen. The maiden, the over sexualized, she might take your man. Oh my god, she took
That's the
Beyonce
top.
down, is Becky.
Okay, that's Becky. That's the top.
And then the crone is Linda. But I don't like the name Linda so much. So no offense to Linda. So I'm thinking like Polly or like Pearl or something. I don't know. But there's basically Linda. So it's Becky,
Uh-huh.
Karen, and Linda. And if you listen to the OK Boomers song, it starts by saying old ladies suck.
Wow. I think you got something there. You have totally sold me on the idea about. I mean, the big ones. I love from learning from this talk, the patriarchal society and repeat boomers. I mean, because the baby boomers are a patriarchal society.
Yeah,
I mean, they're oh my god, they are going to be pissed if any of them find this out. They're going to
sorry.
be if they start actually, because there's going to be a huge resistance to that. There's going to be a huge, overwhelming hatred of that because it's a very boomer move to say that they are anything. You know what I mean? Because we just don't know. But
Yeah, but at the same time as saying that,
right.
it's looking at trends. I've just been looking at the trends and looking, oh, this is interesting. This is the trend that's happening. I'm not saying individual people from any particular generation are a particular way, because everybody is unique and everyone comes here with their own gifts, and everyone has their own circumstances that no one else can understand. So this is necessarily generalizing and
Right.
necessarily incorrect.
So
It's correct in some ways, but it's also wrong in other ways. I'm not saying this is the way things are and they're never going to
understood.
change.
Understood. There are, so let's reword it. Let's say that there are many very very dominant patriarchal traits that Gen Z still exhibits, and there are many similarities between the negative sides of what baby boomer generation has to what Gen Z has. Saying that Gen Z is a patriarchal baby boomer is going to obviously be torn apart. That's never going to work. But so I have
Oops.
some people commenting saying that
Please.
basically all females are going to be at the bottom of the total poll as long as we're around on this planet. So what makes let's say Generation Z more patriarchal than, let's say, or millennials or Gen X, or do we all still have some sort of traits left over from that?
Well,
Are we
I
still
think
fighting
that
it?
I think the fact that any woman who is forthright in their opinion now gets name called, whereas any man who's forthright in his opinion doesn't. So I'm going to get called Karen and Boomer and stuff for actually, but sort of Karen, for saying, well, this is a way that things could be,
You,
giving advice, or
oh,
you
God.
immediately get name called.
We need to make a chart. We need to seriously. Like, I could see people like out with it, like holding up their stereotypical tablets. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're saying that, like, oh, excuse me, who's saying this? Is it a woman? Okay, so we're already in the Karen Linda section.
Yeah,
So is she
we're in
outspoken?
Karen Linda. Yeah, age
Is
doesn't
she a
really
liberal
matter.
or a
Boomer.
Republican? So she's either going to be a boomer or a Karen,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a boomer
yeah,
or a libtard or a snowflake or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Like I need to make a tablet to show
yeah,
that to people. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
like, this is literally how dumb you
But
guys think.
in reality, I unsubscribed from this generation bullshit. I never subscribed to it in the first place. I only had to subscribe to it, a few years ago, just to have conversations with millennials who wouldn't let me not be subscribed. Now I'm unsubscribing from it, and politically, I'm a complete tart. I look at the issues and I make judgments. I don't ever vote along partisan lines. So there's some things where I'm going to be left of center. There's certain things where I'd be, more right of center because I'm entrepreneurial, and I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with you regardless. Like, I don't really give a crap. Just tell me what you bring to the table and I'll listen to you.
And
So
that's a very special mindset, though. Not a lot of people have that. I'm aware that I try to be like that, although I still have my own, I have my own biases and I have my own stereotypes that are discriminations that are either I can't get past or I don't work on enough. I have a lot of things that I immediately quickly judge. I try to be aware of that sort of stuff, but there's no one single answer or one single thing that we can do from all this. So what are some things that I guess people can do in real life? Because my whole point, my whole goal for making this podcast, for making all this content, is to not stir the shit, to not stir the pot, but to open up discussions. And I know that
yeah.
seems like the same thing, but they're really, really very different things. I'm trying to get people to open up discussions, although you can't. Maybe being able to identify who you can have a discussion with.
Yeah. I mean,
um,
sometimes you can't have discussions with people because it's worth bearing in mind things, just simple things like 1 in every 100 people is a psychopath, and you're not going to be able to change their mind on anything. And
yeah,
and
7%
that's
of the
and
people
that's
are
not.
never going to like you. That sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and that's just not generational at all. That's just happenstance.
Yeah.
And so you can't change them. And then certain people have fixed mindset and you can't change them, but you can actually sit down. I mean, you've got to be brave to do it, but you can sit down with someone who has completely polar opposite opinions to you and have a civilized conversation. I had a conversation with a white nationalist the other day, which is so the opposite of where I am. But I just had because they said, I'm a radicalized white nationalist. I said, okay, cool. Tell me about that. Like,
I
where did
love that.
that come from?
I
And
love
we
that.
had a conversation that went on for maybe an hour,
Wow.
where he actually went, because I thought, God, that's got to come from fear. Where does that ultimately come from? And what it came to, I got to his feels. He had feels. And what it came to was, what if what if people forget me, or what if people forget my family, or what if I'm irrelevant? That's what it came to. so
Wow.
so it went from, we've got to kill everyone who's different from us, to I'm scared because I feel I love my family and I feel like people should remember us. And I said, well, you know what you could do, there's tons of ways that you can deal with that concern without hurting anyone. You can write books, you can put stuff out there culturally that's going to outlive you. There's other ways to outlive you than by everyone looking like you.
Are you telling me the solution to intergenerational drama is making content?
Yeah.
Ah, I knew it. I fucking knew it.
It's having conversations with people that you don't agree with, and it's also the other thing to understand, because I'm writing a little booklet at the moment on bullying and trolls and stuff for people who are dealing with this on a daily basis, and but actually for Gen Z, because I think they're dealing with it, although they're generating a lot of it, they're probably
And,
dealing with more of it than most
and
people.
alone, they're not going to their parents and be like, somebody
No.
called me fucking stupid online. They're not
Yeah.
telling them. They're not
Yeah,
doing
I'm
that.
worried for them. So I'm making
Yeah.
them this little book about bullying, and it's called Hurt People, and Heal People. And basically, if you can kind of muster the proverbials to sit down with someone who believes something completely different from you, and then get underneath that and find what is it, why do you feel that way, you can find some kind of commonality. There's commonality somewhere where
Absolutely.
you can go, okay, well, we don't agree on any of this, but we do agree on looking out for the people you love the most. So
Or fear,
tell me, or whatever it is, find a
fear
point.
of being not remembered and stuff like
Fear
that.
of
Yeah,
not being
absolutely.
remembered, or fear of being attacked or whatever. We can agree on that. So
Yeah.
is there a more productive way of dealing with that? And the other thing is to go, when somebody says something and it really triggers you. So apologies to Gen Zs on here that I've triggered. I'm sorry, but that's just, that happens
See,
sometimes.
that's why I go after everybody. Like, no one's safe.
Everyone, no one's safe. So
Nobody's
so
safe.
when you get triggered, the what I when I'm working with people, when I'm working with clients, I tell them to think of a guitar, and when you pluck a string, it resonates. Now, it doesn't necessarily always resonate in a nice way. Sometimes there's a good note, sometimes there's a bad note. But when you pluck the string, it resonates, unless it's only attached at one end. So for somebody to say something and it to trigger you, you've got to already think that about yourself
Interesting.
somewhere. So boomers may be triggering the hell out of Gen Z because on some level internally, they recognize that in themselves. They're looking in the mirror and they're just kind of trying to break the mirror.
And not just the current man. That's a really great analogy of it. Okay, so I'm gonna end it. We're almost at an hour here, but before we go, I want you to let everybody know where they can find you.
Okay, so I've set up a website called the TikTok.com,
The TikTok
which you
T.
can go to, and there are interviews with TikTok famous people up there, and there's things to think about. And I'm going to put some stuff up there that you can download for free, like this anti-bullying thing and whatever. And you can go on there and you can leave comments, and yeah, you don't have to agree with me by all means.
No,
you don't
that's that.
you don't have
So
to agree with me.
I love having these conversations with you, not just because we come from uh wait, what's the word we're using now? We're not using generations. What's the word? What are we gonna be
I
using?
don't know. Different
Different.
streams of existence.
What? That means everybody. That means every individual is unique, Rebecca. I don't think people can handle that.
I'm all about that Einstein time. Like
I don't know.
everything, we are all okay. I'm going to go into my boomer self and say we are stardust. We are golden.
There
Like
you go.
we are
Yeah.
all connected.
Yes. Well, and I think there's a lot of newer generations who are aware of that sort of stuff, though, and that's honestly that's where my biggest pet peeve with them is because they know, they're aware, and I'm still seeing all this stuff happen. But then again, I give them a total pass because they're still under
They're
22.
still they're still
They're still
growing
young.
up. I mean,
They're
they're
still young.
trying stuff out. They're
Hey,
playing
listen,
around
but
with their shadow selves and all
if
that
they
stuff,
if
and
they start
finding out
voicing their
how.
opinion, though, they're playing with the big boys. They're gonna get it back. I'm telling you.
I know.
Okay, so yeah, so it's thetiktokt.com,
Yep.
thetiktokt.com. If you want to go to your website, yours is indiepreneur.
Indiepreneur.academy. So yeah, people who are interested in TikTok and kind of younger generations, the TikTok.com is your place to go for all that. And if you're kind of more entrepreneurial, a little bit older, interested in, all that side of things, indiepreneur.academy is
And of
my kind
course,
of grown up word.
indiepreneur.academy. And of course, and of course, Rebecca Bardess is her tag on Twitter, and the Rebecca Bardess on TikTok.
Yeah,
Um, and once I get this episode put together, I'll put a little video together and I'll tag her here on TikTok. But
that's very kind of you.
any closing statements?
No, well, just to say that just understand that this is all kind of nonsense. I'm kind of, I come from a spiritual context, so my personal belief is that we're spiritual beings living a human existence, not human beings living a spiritual existence. And when you get a sense of how connected we all are, a lot of this BS just kind of falls away.
Mhm.
But our egos are really wrapped up in it, so I'm just as likely to go off on one because someone pisses me off on
You're,
social media as anyone else.
madam, you're too aware. You are too aware, madam. I don't know how we're gonna get anywhere with you if you're this aware. I need you to be more narrow minded, please.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Okay, well that's fine. We might just have to talk again about it then. Well, I appreciate you coming in, Rebecca. And guys, if you haven't already, let's go subscribe to her. She's Rebecca Bardess on Twitter, the Rebecca Bardess on TikTok, the TikTok T, the TikTok.com, and indiepreneur.com or .academy.
Academy.
Indiepreneur.academy. I got it. I'll get it one of these days. Thank you for coming in, Rebecca. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go back over here
Awesome.
to TikTok in case you want
Thank
to hop
you.
in.
Thank you.
Bye.
This
See you
has been
later.
fun. Bye.
Yes. See y'all later. Bye.